The Jewish kingdom, a grand simpatico of majesty, nobility, justice, and holiness. The Jewish version of King Arthur's Camelot mixed with the Vatican. Take for example, war, idolatry, killing of prophets. Civil war, all right, perhaps the mythical Jewish kingdom did have some issues. How did what was once meant to be the divinely endowed Jewish nation break apart? Overview of the period of judges and united monarchy. So after Moses passed away, the Jewish community conquer and then settle in Canaan land under the guidance of Joshua. The Jews are now Israelites officially with their newfound home and apportion the land by tribe. There's Asher and Naphtali in the north, Dan, Benjamin, and Judah in the south. Manasseh and Gad discovered a luxurious patch of land on the other side of the Jordan and chose to settle beyond the kingdom borders. Point is, everyone kinda just remains to themselves for a time. Not a bad thing, just a loose association of states, if you will. Not much central leadership other than the judges, not the black robe and gavel kind of judge, but spiritual leaders who emerged to whip the Jews back into line when they became complacent, and perhaps led a war or two. Now that was by design, a system to ensure maximum personal responsibility and empower the individual. Idealistic, utopian, truly a freedom worth cherishing. But then the Jewish people say, you know what would be nice, to be ruled by a king. I guess they were looking around and they saw all their neighbors with their frou-frou, and their crowns, and their glorious robes, and they thought, I want a piece of that. So the prophet Samuel anoints an Israelite named Saul, and he's good, reigning for about 2 years, or 20 depending upon whether you're traveling, according to the Bible or the historian's estimate. But who's keeping score? Saul was followed by King David, who enjoys bullying hulking savages and composing verse, which leads up to Solomon, the wisest of men, who in Jewish tradition is the author of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the Song of Songs, creator of the baby bisecting maternity test, and most famously of all the construction of Solomon's temple. Think of the beauty of Buckingham Palace, the Sistine Chapel's beauty, and the size of the pyramids, with less lines than Disney World. Yes, Israel finally had its wonder of the world, where the priest performed the daily sacrifices and sketched the presence of God onto earth. It was the crowning achievement of King Solomon, but it wasn't inexpensive. That's all right, we'll allow the next fellow to be concerned about the budget deficit. King Rehoboam won't grant the 10 northern tribes the tax cut, and to the next fellow, Rehoboam. Solomon's son, King Rehoboam, takes over, and immediately he gets struck with grievances from the 10 northern tribes. You see, in order to construct that temple, Solomon had to impose taxes and require labor. But now the temple was done, the 10 northern tribes felt it was not unfair to request a tax reduction. Rehoboam spoke with his advisors. Now he has 2 groups of counsel. There's the aged, experienced, and tried elders who worked for his father. Their advice, relax and talk to them softly, and they will be your servants lifelong. Or he could pay heed to his young, brash advisors who advised him to let them know who's boss. Guess which he did. Rehoboam cracks down, declaring, my father punished you with whips, I will punish you with scorpions. So the northern tribes Brexit, creating the northern kingdom of Israel. Jeroboam rebels and the kingdom divides into Judea and Israel. Jeroboam, one of Solomon's former ministers, is given a prophecy that he, rather than Rehoboam, would be the new king. Having been the one to lead the Israelites in requesting the lower tax rate, he now accepts the challenge to rebel and becomes king of the north. Meanwhile, Rehoboam is left with the southern tribes, namely Judah and Benjamin, also called the Kingdom of Judah. So if Saul was anointed in 879 BC, and Rehoboam had his turn at kingship in 796, less than 100 years would pass before 4 kings would mess up the nation. Jeroboam builds idolatrous shrines at Dan and Bethel, so did the trial breakup work. No, not on your life. On a spiritual level, they both fail. In the north, Jeroboam doesn't approve of Judah having the temple. So Jeroboam constructs his own temple, really two of them, one in the tribe of Dan and one in Bethel. But he chooses to go slightly off brand, selecting for his mascot the golden calf. Word of advice: when you're attempting to make a name for yourself, don't choose your country's all-time largest failure. Rehoboam abandons Bible law and breaks alliances in the south. Rehoboam is not doing too much better. He has approximately 17 years where he abandons Bible law and attacks from the Egyptians and the Ethiopians. Oh, and all the alliances that had been established with the nations all around them. The Philistines, the Moabites, the Edomites, they're out. Omri weds Ahab to Phoenician Princess Jezebel. After the break are a succession of ruling kings, all with their own levels of success, scandals, overthrows, and wars. Up north, Jeroboam dies and his son succeeds him, but then gets murdered by one of his army officers. They get through a few more reigns as one military commander kills the king, takes over, and then is assassinated by another army commander. Usurp, rinse, repeat. We arrive on Omri in 884, who is a good king, boosting commerce and trade, and even boldly constructs a Jerusalem of the north, Samaria, with not a temple, but a magnificent citadel, designating it his new capital. But perhaps his most noted exploit is marrying off his son, Ahab, to the Phoenician princess, Jezebel. We will return to this. Asa cleans the southern kingdom of idols. Meanwhile, back in the south, it's basically the same kind of marching monarch conga line. At last a man named Asa becomes king down there, and instead of killing or warring his way into power, he gets the nation to make a spiritual 180, cleansing the southern kingdom of idols. He even takes his grandmother's. That's guts. So Asa's one of the handful of kings the Bible actually commends. But does that assist him in his ongoing battles against the north? Not particularly. Civil war between the northern and southern kingdoms. As the northern kingdoms, soldiers actually get as close as 5 miles to capturing Jerusalem, and Asa is compelled to appeal to Damascus for assistance, paying with gold and silver from the temple and his palace. King Ben-Hadad invades from Aram Damascus, what we would today refer to as Syria, compelling the north to fall back in overwhelming defeat. The entire Jewish civil war goes off the rails when Ahab and Jezebel are called out by the prophet Elijah for their deplorable institutionalization of idolatry across Israel. The Book of Kings goes so far as to label Ahab the worst king to date. These names are familiar, as all three have remained in Jewish and popular culture. Ahab is the central figure of Herman Melville's Moby Dick and a little-known X-Men bad guy, but fiction falls short of fact in terms of evil, as he and his wife rounded up and killed more than 300 Jewish prophets and reintroduced idolatry into the land. As bad as Ahab was, Jezebel was. Ring leader. Jezebel attempts to eradicate the God of Israel. She hated the laws of Judaism and wanted to eradicate God from the kingdom of Israel once and for all. Along with the prophet Purge, she set up a law, biting landowner, killing him to take his land. She goaded her husband to construct an altar to the Canaanite deity, Baal, in the Sumerian capital, and ordered him to bring in 450 priests of the pagan god, Baal, and another 400 of the pagan god, Asherah. So on the vile scale of that food critic from Ratatouille to Thanos, she's between Maleficent and the fellow who invented alternative side parking tickets. Jezebel was the ultimate seductress, often used in popular culture today, in music, film, television, and the self-described so-called feminist website, Jezebel.com. The prophet Elijah predicts a drought. When prophet Elijah initially meets the pair, he prophesies a 2-year drought, which actually occurs, afflicting the land. As he toils to conceal the remaining few prophets, Ahab and Jezebel become increasingly angry, refusing to repent. Prophet Elijah vs. the priests of Baal at Mount Carmel. 3 years later, Elijah has had enough and challenges them to a duel. where Mount Carmel, who all of Israel's Jews challenge, the 450 priests of Baal would offer an offering on their altar, while Elijah by himself would offer an offering to the God of the Jews. No flame, no burning of incense, whose God descends from heaven and devours the offering first, would be declared the victor. The priests of Baal install their altar and pray to their God for the greater part of an afternoon, while Elijah stands by, calm, cool, and collected. The priests become frantic, calling out to their God and even sacrificing themselves, hoping the blood and suffering would wake their slumbering deity, but nothing. Elijah finally starts to taunt, shout louder. Perhaps your God is talking with his other God buddies. Perhaps he went out for a coffee. Perhaps he's taking a divine afternoon nap. I'm paraphrasing slightly. When the priests give in, Elijah confidently pours water on his offering once, twice, but 3 times, and even has a ditch of additional water dug to extinguish any potential flame that could arise from ground level. This fellow knows how to stage a show. Then, before the huge crowd, Elijah prays to the God of the Jews. In a matter of seconds, a column of fire descends from the skies, devouring the offering, the pyre, the stone altar, and even the moat of water. The crowd at once shouted praises to God, chanting, "The Lord, He is God! The Lord, He is God!" With the nation once more on his side, Elijah has all the prophets of Baal brought in and put to death. Elisha as new head prophet, Jehu as successor to the throne. You'd expect by then the tides would shift and a wave of penitence would sweep over the country. But miracles strike people on an emotional plane, and more often than not, as soon as that emotion fades, so does that person's determination. This is how Jezebel can observe Elijah's triumph and say, "So may the gods do to you as you have done to my priests. And so this time tomorrow I will make your life like the life of one of them." Really, she's threatening to kill him. And Elijah knows within a couple of days the Jews aren't going to care about it. So Elijah makes a run for it out of Dodge and goes into hiding again. He appoints Elisha as the new top prophet, and then anoints Jehu as the new heir and rightful king on the throne. Elijah is taken up to heaven in a chariot of fire. It's not long after Elijah's death. I put air quotes around this because many of the great rabbis from the Talmud think that he didn't really die. The Book of Kings tells the tale that one day, walking with Elisha, there is a firestorm whirling around the two, and a chariot of fire thundering down, inviting Elijah aboard, on which he is taken up to heaven. Elijah roams the earth and goes to all circumcisions, but like Loki, Jon Snow, or Wade Wilson, Elijah just won't die. As an integral part of rabbinic heritage, it's believed that Elijah continues roaming the world, assisting those in distress, and showing up at every boy's Brit Milah. And when the Messiah arrives, he'll be the one to proclaim it. Not too shabby a job for rallying an evil queen to be called to action. Jehu takes the north and puts an end to idolatry in 853 BC as the Assyrian threat loomed large. Ahab is killed in combat. Amid the tumult, Jehu, dripping with Elijah's anointing oils, asserts his right to the northern throne. He kills first Ahab's son, Jehoram, with a perfectly aimed arrow through the heart, and then targets Queen Jezebel. In her misery, Jezebel doesn't run. She styles her hair and gets made up proper as she looks down on the advancing monarch. Was she attempting to entice the killer of her son? Or did she prefer to die with honor and in style? Hard to tell, but when Jehu comes, she cries out for assistance from her closest and most loyal eunuchs who throw her out of the window. Then the horses stamp on her body, and all except her hands, head, and feet are eaten by stray dogs, which Elijah completely called through prophecy a couple chapters before. Jehu annihilates Baal from all of Israel, as well as those golden calves of Bethel and Dan. While Jehu's actions were just in accordance with the Bible, his kingdom would struggle to repel King Shalmaneser III of Assyria and Hazael, king of Aram. The run up to Babylonian exile, the kingdoms linger for a few more reigns, but soon enough the northern kingdom was dismantled bit by bit, and the southern kingdom was overrun, resulting in the first exile in 422 BCE. Unity has never been all that easy for independent-spirited Jewish folk, either trekking across the desert or arguing about politics of contemporary Israel. Or, as Golda Meir so succinctly explained to Richard Nixon, "You are the president of 150 million Americans. I am the prime minister of 6 million prime ministers." They did have a wonderful moment of utopian unity at Mount Sinai, but within 40 days they'd already experienced the golden calf fiasco. Maybe that is the reason for the prophecy of Ezekiel, that the long-term unity of the nation will only come at the end of days. But even amid the chaos, the people of the great kingdoms of Judah and Israel never lost their ties to their culture, history, pride, and the return to religious faithfulness, even though it would have to be achieved by exile, but you'll have to find the next video for that. Outro: if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications so you'll receive a notification when we post new videos.